On the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Ferris here on a Tuesday. Good show on tap for you because we're going to be talking about elections. We're going to talk, of course, about the presidential election just about a month away now and whether or not you're going to vote. And I hope you do, and I certainly expect you to vote. I plan on voting as well. I hope all Americans do. It's our right to do so. But many of you may be at this point wondering if things have changed, whether or not you have to register, what your timing is for that. Also, what's early voting in the schedule around the state where you may happen to live. We're going to get into all of that, maybe answer some of your questions about election fraud, things like that, if you have concerns. Our guest this morning will be able to address that for you. See the number on the screen as we talk voter registration and early voting, 737-7587 if you want to join in the conversation with us this morning. Two folks from the Metro Election Commission. Jeff Roberts, the Administrator of Elections for the Davidson County Election Commission. Nice to have you on, Jeff.
Thanks.
And next to you is Joe Nixon, Deputy Administrator of Elections here in Davidson County. Thank you all for coming on. Really appreciate it. I think one reason you're coming on is the same reason I want to talk about it this morning. Ready, set, vote, right? Get out and vote. Get it going. Are we expecting, as we normally do in presidential elections, just a very large turnout, or significantly larger than we've seen in some of our more recent elections, right? Is that pretty much status quo?
That's our expectation, that we would have a large turnout. And it's an opportunity for folks to make a decision what day they want to vote, either early voting or on election day.
You guys both probably recommend, I suppose, if you can, do the early voting, because there's going to be lines on election day.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so early voting, there's ample opportunity. Now, it starts when? You said Wednesday, October 19th?
October 19th, and it ends on November the 3rd. And in Davidson County, we have 12 locations, and they're all going to be opened at the same time.
And the locations in Davidson County, 8 to, varies, 4:30 to 7. And we should say, you know, when it starts Wednesday, October 19th, again, for those of you watching, many of you watching outside of Davidson County, this applies, it's a statewide. Early voting starts statewide October 19th.
That is correct.
And runs until November 3rd.
Right. So the voter needs to go to the county of their residence and cast their ballot early.
Okay. And talk about what you need to bring with you when you show up, just for folks that maybe haven't voted in a while.
Of course, during early voting on election day, you are to bring an acceptable photo ID, and that acceptable photo ID is a Tennessee state government issued photo ID or a federal photo issued ID.
Okay. And if you, go ahead.
So keep in mind, college students, your student ID, even though it may be from the University of Tennessee, it's not acceptable as a photo ID.
Okay.
So, you know, your driver's license, your passport, carry permit, some of those type things.
Okay, and we have the specific reason for this is to cut down on the potential for voter fraud, isn't it? That you have to have that ID with you. Most people use their driver's licenses.
Right, that is correct. And it's, yes, state law passed the photo ID law, and so that was the.
No, it makes sense. Okay, to make sure you bring that with you, and the idea is, you know, what early voting is oftentimes a different location than where you would typically vote for your precinct on election day. I know it is for me in Wilson County.
Right.
So the best way to find out about that would be, I guess you can call the county clerk. I assume if you go to the website for your local
Election Commission, and you can look that up and get that information from the county of the voters' residence.
Okay, and in a lot of these counties, and in general, there'll be very many similarities when you're talking about national races, but you can look at sample ballots, right?
Right, that is correct. That is correct.
It just takes you down the line, and I'm just looking at some of these sample ballots. Election day, though, again, you have to use your assigned precinct.
Yes.
Give me an idea. When I talked about turnout, what do we suspect turnout might be in Davidson County this year? What are you preparing for, percentage-wise? What do you think?
Of the total?
Yeah. How many registered voters in Davidson County do we know?
We're approaching 400,000 registered voters in Davidson County.
Okay.
So, you know, if you have John, what do we have in past presidential elections? A couple 100,000 in early voting.
Right. In November of 2008, we voted early, over 190,000 voters.
Okay.
And so that cut down the lines and all of that on election day. So that's the election we use as a measurement to prepare for early voting and on election day, because that was a very good election day, because it took the load off the poll officials at the
Right.
precincts, and the voter was able to be at home and not get into those lines. So that's where we're looking at.
Yeah, and there are going to be lines. I'll tell you.
Yes.
Sure.
I do remember. Yeah, well, when you have the lines too. By the way, when the precincts are supposed to close, if there's a long line still, what they'll do is say, "Well, we're going to let everyone get in and vote." Meaning they may have to stay beyond the
That's
hour.
right.
Post the
That's
line.
right. And
You guys
it
do a
that
great
has
job with
happened.
that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Those poll officials, their day begins. They have to arrive by 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And you can think if that line extends beyond 7, they could be there.
Sure.
Quite a few hours. It's a long day for them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
but the idea is that they're prepared for that to get everyone they can to vote.
Yes.
Talk about the poll workers. What type of training? Are they paid? Are they volunteers as they used to be? How does that work out with the poll workers in Davidson County?
Go ahead, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the poll workers are paid
Okay.
for just the day rate, based on their position.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of training. We started training our poll workers the second week in September, and we will be training till the mid portion of the schedule for early voting. So we are in their 3-hour classes. Some are 4-hour classes, depending on the position. And of course, the other positions are well trained as well.
You talk about training, and it is important because there's certain guidelines they have to be aware of. I mean, obviously, they need to know how to maybe instruct someone if they're not sure how to operate the machine, and we'll talk about the machines in a little bit.
Right.
But what's the main thing poll workers you think need to be aware of in terms of answering questions? They're never supposed to be political in any way, correct? And
Right.
You got to be careful on that line.
And when we're training our poll workers, one of the things that is so important for voters to be informed is a voter may come to a precinct and want the poll official to interpret what this means or who's on the ballot. And that has been hard to kind of get across to voters, that we cannot speak to what's on the ballot. The ballot speaks for itself. It's up to the voter to be informed. And a lot of times this will come in play when there is a referendum on the election.
The measures.
Yes.
I never understand them. I mean,
Well-
I read them and you're like, and I know you can't ask them. They can't.
No.
It's like, wait a second. What does this mean?
Right.
And
Right.
it's sometimes written in such an obtuse way.
And all we do is get
No.
they tell us what to put on the ballot, and it's on the ballot. And so voters really need to inform themselves, educate themselves on what's on the ballot, how does it pertain to them, and then go forward in casting a ballot. But we as poll officials and election officials, we cannot tell a voter what the ballot means or who's on the ballot or those types of things. We
Right.
just can't get into that conversation.
And that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful. And that's why it's important to go and take a look at that
Sample
ballot. And
That's
then if
right.
there's something you don't understand as you read it, then you can do your own research beforehand and find out, all right, what does this measure really say, and along those lines.
Right.
And again, the rule of thumb for candidates or folks who are supporting any political measure or candidate, they have to keep a certain distance from the polls again.
100
correct?
feet.
100 feet. And so if are your workers actually, you guys have markers, so you know
Yes.
100 feet. So they'll be able to look up. And
Right.
I'm telling you, we've done stories before. Someone steps 2 feet over that, they're going to be talked to and said, get back. If they
Right.
don't, then, you can call the police,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
100 feet.
100 feet from the entrance of the polling location.
But
That's
it'll
right.
be mobbed out there probably with signs and everything.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden there's the clean area as you walk your way in.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
All right. Well, it's an exciting time when you're election. All right, we're going to take a break. We've got some calls coming in. Questions, concerns, anything along those lines. We're not talking politics this morning. I want to
Right.
make sure we're not here to talk about any of the candidates or the measures, but more about the process of voting. Any questions you may have, they're here to answer and make sure you can make it as easily as possible when you go to the polls. Let's take a break. When we come back, the number 737-7587 is the number. If you're on hold, stay there. More with your calls and our guests right after this.